Right now on Amplified, with such an abundance of water literally all around us, why is the water sector still facing huge engineering problems?
You know, it is something that requires a significant level of investment to ensure that that is provided at a certain standard, and a lot of governments aren't allocating enough for that.
Hi there, my name is Dusty Rhodes and you're welcome to Amplified, the Engineers Journal podcast. Today we're looking at the key water sector of engineering, which faces all kinds of challenges, from inefficient, leaky infrastructure to an urgent focus on sustainability, thanks to the rapidly changing climate around us. Our guest has been a leader in this area for 25 years since founding his company in Loughrea in Galway, which has been a huge success, not only just here in Ireland, but across Europe and the USA as well. It's a pleasure to welcome and hopefully learn from the Group MD of Glanua, Karl Zimmerer. How are you doing, Karl?
I'm great, Dusty. Thanks very much for having me.
So listen, tell me, I'm sure you've heard of Michael Burry, the man who famously predicted the 2008 crash. He said after that, he said, right, do you know what I'm going to invest in next is water. He said water will become the most valuable resource on the planet. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think the changing regulations around the standards of particularly drinking water that we have to provide to the populations and society in general is an ever-changing challenge for us. I think the discharges of wastewater to the environment, whether it's the sea to receiving rivers and lakes, is an ongoing challenge and continually evolving. So we're lucky we have an abundance of both here in Ireland, but there are certainly other parts of the world where water recycling, water reuse are absolutely going to be essential to meet the needs of future society and future generations.
Do you think water will ever become a commodity like gold is?
It is a very expensive commodity. It is a very expensive resource that is absolutely essential to life. And we've had huge debates in Ireland about that over the last 10 years to 20 years. It takes a lot of investment to maintain an asset that can adequately abstract water from whatever source, treat it to the correct standards, manage the networks, distribute it to people's taps, collect their wastewater, convey that wastewater to treatment plants, and safely discharge that to the environment where there is no adverse effects. That is a pretty significant cost of providing that essential, critical resource for life. But, you know, a lot of other countries value that an awful lot more. We fund it in Ireland directly out of Central Exchequer funds. The water utility model there are loads of versions of it throughout the world. The UK is not probably best placed to use as a reference at the moment, but right. Certainly, you know, it is something that requires a significant level of investment to ensure that is provided at a certain standard, and a lot of governments aren't allocating enough for that.
And it's not exactly like it's something that we can live without. Listen, you've been working in this area for a long time, and with Glanua as well. Tell me a little bit about the quick history of the company.
It's my own career. When I qualified in the mid-90s, back in that time, there wasn't a huge amount of work around. I worked for 6 months for free. My first project was setting out the bottom half of the M50 for land acquisition and routing, and then progressed into civil engineering. My background is structural engineering. How did I get involved in water services? I built a lot of the structures and infrastructure around that. In the 90s and noughties, in the early noughties, a lot of the water services projects that were procured based on the specialist disciplines. So the civil engineering contractor was appointed first. The process and MICA, mechanical, electrical, instrumentation control contractor or consultant was a separate appointment to go and deliver whether a water or wastewater treatment plant or pipeline project. In the late 90s and early noughties, the concept of design, build and operate and maintain came into Ireland, driven very much by the significant infrastructure and asset deficit we had. The government realised that they had to bring in contractors who had the design, build and operate and maintain experience, because we were bringing in huge new technologies and new systems and processes that were required across the country. So that model of design, build, operate and maintain was introduced, and there was very few contractors, engineering consultants and contractors who had the ability to be able to do the whole range of services around delivering of that design build. So I was initially involved in an organization that targeted specifically the design, build, operate and maintain market to provide a one-stop shop contracting entity which had the engineering ability to take raw water abstraction through to treatment, storage, distribution, network management, and similarly on the wastewater, collecting all the sewage, conveying it to wastewater treatment plants, and then safely treating it and discharging it out. So it was driven very much by a need in the industry. And subsequently, when I created Glanua in 2007, it was to focus in on the engineering solutions around that whole water cycle. So from the raw water abstraction all the way out to the effluent. And there was a very big need for it at the time. And so we've gone from strength to strength. It's been rebranded in the last couple of years to Glanua, focus on that whole industrial and municipal water sector.
When you look back on everything that you've achieved to date, and you've plenty more to go, which particular projects that you were involved in kind of stand out in your mind?
I look back over my career, and there's been significant project milestones that ultimately led to it, whether it be the rural water sector and the DBO bundles, which those water treatment plants, Dusty, had significant challenges in the country, and for Ireland Inc. as well, where there was a huge range of raw water sources that required process engineering to be adapted to cater for those specific requirements. The rural water sector is a phenomenal part of the country where this group scheme sector provide huge portions of the country with treated water historically, but subsequently as we progressed into Glanua since 2007, again is identifying some of those range of services that can really meet the needs of society, and we've undertaken quite a lot of bundled regional water treatment plants, so a number of water treatment plants within one contract for whole counties where we would upgrade the assets, and the challenges around that and dealing with the local authority, but from the process engineering, the hydraulic, the mechanical, electrical, instrumentation, control and automation, that experience, which in Ireland, we've a unique set of challenges. We've a lot of groundwater, our surface water. We've karst limestone regions, which on the west coast of Ireland, where a lot of that surface water infiltrates into pristine groundwater, which makes the water very difficult to treat because it varies quite substantially.
Okay.
That led to, as the business grew, we expanded into the UK, but we had a very unique project that all of that competency set led us to a position where we were had a requirement to upgrade two very large water treatment plants on the northwest of London, where they had pristine aquifer sources that had very little treatment requirement. But a tunnel boring machine to construct the high-speed rail line from London to Birmingham was going to tunnel right through the centre of this aquifer and create quite high risk to the safety of the raw water source. But based on our experience of the west of Ireland, karst limestone, and understanding the range of impacts that can happen to groundwater sources arising out of pollutants, which would be the bentonite slurry associated with tunnel boring machines, but also surface water infiltration.
Yeah.
Allowed our engineering team come up with the absolute fit-for-purpose solution to provide an upgrade to those treatment plants to ensure that there was safe water provided for the customers of that water company.
And what was the solution?
It was a mixture of membrane technology, which is very advanced treatment to provide a barrier to quite elevated levels of particularly turbidity and other solids that could arise out of it. It was an unknown. This is not something that has been frequently experienced. So having a pristine water course with a big construction activity going through it So there was a huge amount of hydrogeological and geotechnical evaluation to understand what those impacts would be to engineer the exact solution. It had to be delivered in an extremely tight timescale because the tunnel boring machine was coming at a particular date. So engineering that solution, which was very much based in offsite assembled solutions, designed for manufactured assembly, that whole digital construction piece was the only way to upgrade these plants within the timescale and extremely tight footprints. So that was the probably headline project that a lot of our experience over the years just led to having that perfect capacity.
You strike me as a man who relishes a challenge and then coming up with a unique solution for it. And I also note as well from looking at your website that you have an innovation centre in Navan. What exactly is it that you innovate there?
There's understanding the needs of your customers and to ensure that you stay ahead of the regulatory drivers that are requiring an awful lot of the water treatment upgrades can involve having cutting edge technology solutions that will deal with, so PFAS is a very topical thing that you hear from the States that's now coming into the Ireland and the UK, which is sometimes characterized these forever chemicals. So understanding the range of treatment capabilities to be able to deal with those type of pollutants in your treatment plants is something that we're looking at quite actively. But innovation can be the cutting edge technologies that we're looking at, but also simply put, doing things more efficiently. And, you know, the membrane technology I refer to in that project is often more regularly used in wastewater treatment, but can equally be applied in drinking water treatment, which was the first time that it had been done in that type of scenario. So innovation is something that we feel very, very passionate about, because innovation can be how you dig the hole, how you construct the tank. It can be about the technology, the pump system, the motor that drives the pump, what efficiency set point, and understanding what the needs are for your customers. One thing that's quite topical, Dusty, at the moment around the whole sustainability side is we have prepared, we've upgraded a wastewater treatment plant for a small town in the southwest of the country. And we have a full compliant, very, very efficient wastewater treatment plant. And we have presented its exact replica of that same wastewater treatment plant achieving the net zero outcomes. Now, the challenge for us as an engineering solutions provider, but also our client, is that plant will cost X and it will deliver it. That net zero carbon solution will cost X multiplied by 3. So we have this constant challenge around that innovation piece, as well as understanding where we're going as an industry. Do we want the net zero carbon today? Because if we do, it's going to cost an awful lot more than what the current regulatory drivers require for that particular asset right now.
So how do you strike that balance then between cost and thinking of the future and making that investment now?
Well, we've engaged quite a lot with the water utilities and the water companies in the UK, and that's very topical at the moment around their funding challenges and Ofwat agreeing at certain rates they can charge the customers, and whether that allows them fund adequately their investment is offset against A, what the regulator wants them to achieve, but B, they're all committed to achieving net zero goals, as is Loughrea in Ireland, and doing some phenomenal pieces of engineering, but that costs a huge amount to do. All of the water companies in Loughrea is probably doing some of the best work of what we're experiencing right now, need to invest to get their assets up to a particular standard. And that's their core investment deliverable at this moment in time, to achieve safe drinking water, good wastewater treatment to ensure that there's no pollutants, and develop those assets to cater for economic growth and housing, which is very topical in the country here, offset against, well, we would like to have zero energy output over the TOTEX evaluation over 10 to 15, 20 years, is a real difficult balancing act. And it's finding that range of technologies. And it may come out to be a shopping list where some of the customers and clients will say, we'd like some of that, but we can't afford to do that right now. So it's identifying the right solutions and technologies for the right location. whether it's a very, very large wastewater treatment plant for 3 million population equivalent in London, or it's a small 500p village in southwest of Kerry. It's a very difficult challenge and balancing act for those customers and the regulators.
You mentioned that we're doing quite well in Ireland in relation to water. Why do you think we are managing it so well here?
Well, having been involved here since the 90s and having upgraded water treatment plants, particularly in water treatment plants that were on boil water notices for a long number of years, there was huge negative publicity, particularly at the creation of Irish Water, now Uisciúin, around some of those legacy issues. You don't hear that much anymore. The work that they've done in removing a lot of those risks has been phenomenal. They've done national disinfection programs to ensure that all of the water producing assets have sufficient disinfection to ensure that the water is safe to drink as it goes out into distribution. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be unique circumstances around aging assets that require interventions to ensure that the water is kept safe and clean. But when you look at where they started from, which was suffering from 20 to 30 to 40 years of underinvestment, that money came from the central exchequer funding. So there was housing, there was health, there was schools. We're all competing for that central pot of money. And coming up to an election, Dusty, nobody cuts a ribbon over a manhole. It was a very good phrase I heard recently. So in the context of what they've achieved and what they've done, have they leaks? Absolutely. But they've reduced leaks substantially within areas. And they're dealing with Victoria-era pipelines, which is the exact same as they've done and spent billions in London and Birmingham and Manchester replacing. And we're still in catch-up mode. But they've done some really good work, which is often missed because it's the bad news stories we report on quite a lot more than an awful lot of the good news stories.
Well, it's good to hear somebody speaking positively about it. Where do you think we are at balancing supply of water along with sanitation and then, of course, keeping sustainability in mind?
Well, we're currently working on two of the largest, working on upgrades on two of the largest water treatment plants in the Dublin region on behalf of Uisciúin, and really doing some really great upgrade works. When you are at the coalface of working on a day-to-day basis with the people who manage the water supply into Dublin, you are in awe of the work they do. It is in such a fine balance of the available water supply from predominantly the Liffey into Dublin compared to the demand that goes out. And all you need is one or two shock events, which could be a drought where everybody leaves their garden hoses on, and the demand goes through the roof. So balancing, finding at a macro level the right solutions, like bringing water from Shannon. They have Ireland Inc. have no choice. We have absolutely no choice. We will run out of water as growth continues in the Dublin region if they do not continue to invest. Yes, they can continue investing and avoiding leaks, but that is absolutely essential. So in terms of that supply and demand issue, particularly within the Dublin region, it's absolutely essential. It's on a knife edge, and there's some phenomenal work going on to ensure that it's continued. But we will see more hose pipe bans and things like that into the future, which is commonplace in parts of London and the UK now.
If things are that tight, then, kind of integrating sustainability principles must be hugely important to your projects. How do you do that?
Well, it's ensuring that we have, one of the projects that we're doing quite a lot now, both in the UK and a number of projects in Ireland, is just capturing things like the carbon footprint of a specific asset, whether it's a product or a material or anything like that. And it's mapping out, is that the most efficient overall carbon footprint solution? But the headline sustainability things is making existing assets last longer and deliver more efficiently. So a challenge for the industry and the sector here, and particularly around the water treatment plant and asset delivery portfolios, is to understand we'd all like shiny new infrastructure, but it is ensuring that the existing assets there can be upgraded such that they provide sufficient capacity. And that is your biggest bang for your buck in terms of your overall sustainability approach, is that whole reuse Within the wastewater side, obviously the bioresource sector is absolutely massive, and using that, there's some other new technologies around hydrogen generation and using the effluent from wastewater treatment plants. So there's a lot of cutting edge work going on with various organizations now to look at that. So it can come down to the smallest pump on the infrastructure to the biggest overall asset. And we've just commissioned a very large water treatment plant for a significant town or city in Ireland now. And it is a very, very good project and reference project to demonstrate where we've upgraded the existing. We built new streams to increase the overall capacity and performance of that plant while upgrading the existing infrastructure to ensure that the overall completed project can achieve the necessary outcomes as well as increase capacity and growth. So the whole sustainability and ensuring that our sustainability strategy is aligned with what our customers need is absolutely essential, but it encompasses absolutely everything of the whole life cycle of a project.
Can I just ask on behalf of engineers who are listening at the moment, I mean, you are Mr. Water, for the sake of argument, all right? You're right there, you're in it, this is your thing, all right? For engineers who are kind of outside of that a little bit, but where water is going to be part of what they need to be thinking about, how should they be changing their thinking when it comes to water as part of a construction or an infrastructure project?
Well, there's two elements to the question. There is engineers, if nothing else, demonstrate to prospective employers that they have the ability to learn. So certainly when you come out of college or university, as I was as a structural engineer, I'm now leading a water company. So there's not a direct link, is you need to be very, very flexible in understanding the range of disciplines. So if we take any particular project within the project lifecycle, you've process engineering, you've scientists, you've mechanical engineers, you have electrical instrument engineers, you've ICA engineers, you've civil engineers, you've structural engineers. We've engineers. We don't care what your discipline is, but you must be able to understand the overall thing. Now, obviously, there's certain specialties in that and specialism in that. But in terms of ensuring how it's embedded within that infrastructure and engineering across towns and cities and infrastructure projects, it's ensuring that we can use the water and collect the water as efficiently as possible. Obviously goes without saying that there should be no leaks and things like that. But the whole reuse side of things, we do a lot of work for industrial clients in the pharma. We've a huge track record in the meat and dairy sector, which are absolute colossal industries in Ireland. And a lot of those companies are now putting in full water reuse solutions in place because the water demand is absolutely colossal. We looked at the biggest water users, or some of the biggest water users in the UK, of which, strangely enough, as once you sit down and look at these things, the automobile sector, in terms of washing vehicles in factories and that whole industry, is absolutely colossal. So they're desperately looking at means of treating their effluent, but reusing it within the main process for engineering their cars and cleaning the cars and whatever else they use it specifically for. But it applies to every sector and every industry.
So if you have that, all of a sudden, water is a big part of a project that you have to handle and you need to learn more. Where do you go and learn these things? What's your own thing? When you're given a challenge, you go, I'm not the world expert. Now, obviously, you don't tell people you're not the world expert. The answer is always yes. And then you go off and you go, oh, crikey. What do you do? What do you do to go and make these things happen?
Well, I think it's, whether it's a company or an individual, it's learning. It's basically understanding where the industry is going, where the sector is going, understanding what one of the things I mentioned earlier on is PFAS, forever chemicals, so that's very cutting edge. They now have it regulated in the US. It's not yet regulated in the UK and Ireland. It's understanding, so the process engineering solutions around that are not proven yet. So it's very cutting edge technologies. So we collectively as an organization, as a collective, individuals have to understand, examine, innovate around what type of engineering solutions that are around that. So it's going back to college in certain circumstances, and I don't mean that exactly, but it is just opening up the most new technological papers, understanding what it means, and learning from it.
Grant, that's exactly what I was trying to find out. Where do you learn from? So it is the latest technological papers and industry publications. I'm sure you must do a bit of Googling and see what they're doing around the world and talking to colleagues and all those different sources.
We within the organisation here, we have a very active lunch and learn process with all our graduate programme. We believe is probably one of the most robust in the industry, in the sector. And as part of that, we will have very, very regularly some of these companies or regulators or experts, some of which are in-house and are on advisory boards for British Water and advising other water companies in the UK around emerging pollutants and emerging pharmaceuticals in some of these wastewaters. So we do that through lunch and learns. And obviously there's project experience as well as part of that overall graduate program.
And can I wrap up by asking you about that? Because you're very proactive in encouraging people to move up the ladder in the career, and that Lunch and Learn is just one of the things that you do. And the graduate program that you have, generally within the company and the various projects that you have around the world, when you're looking for people, and when you're looking for people who want to move up the ladder, what impresses you? And then you go, he's going up the ladder.
Yeah, but there's absolutely no stupid questions, Dusty, and we make it very, very clear to our graduates as we explain to them. One of the ethos, and I probably learned from people who I worked with in the 90s and noughties, and it often comes back to, don't come to me with questions, come to me with solutions. And check if those solutions, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. And just ask me, do I think the solutions are right? That does two things. Fundamentally, it gets that young engineer, whether a graduate or advanced in years, it gets them fundamentally problem solving. So they have to come with a solution. They have to come with an idea. The idea might be lunacy and it might be stupid, but that's the learning. It's better to come with an idea up front so that it embeds that problem solving nature within their career development and their thought. And second of all, it allows me an awful lot more time to be just advising them on what their solution is rather than having to solve the problem for them. But it's a very, very important trait. And those young career-minded people who want to progress, you will find do that far more often. And some of our absolute best developing people within the industry or within our business are people that mightn't have the traditional disciplines or the top of the class results. It is that practical approach, whether it can be very design oriented, academic or otherwise, but that practical minded problem solving ability to be able to bring real and viable solutions to the challenges that we encounter every single day across every day. And some of the challenges we're dealing with now within our organization are, once in a lifetime engineering problems in replacing a massive pump station, Victorian era pump station in London without damaging that building, which is a listed building. It's colossal challenges that we encountered every day, but it's that attitude of this is what's in front of me. I need to go and deliver it. There's problems. This is how I think I'm going to solve these problems. And 2-3 years into it, that engineer, whatever qualification they have, they are phenomenally advanced and positive for our organisation.
Right. So don't be shy, speak up and offer solutions. That's what gets the attention and gets you up the ladder. And I have to say, Karl, a lot of the projects that you are working on with Glanua sound absolutely fascinating. If you want to find out more about them or about Karl or any of the topics that we spoke about today, you'll find notes and link details in the description area of this podcast. But for now, Karl Zimmerer, Group MD of Glanua, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Justin.
If you enjoyed our podcast today, do share with a friend in the business. Just tell them to search for Engineers Ireland in their podcast player. The podcast is produced by dustpod.io for Engineers Ireland. For advanced episodes, more information on engineering across Ireland or career development opportunities, there are libraries of information on the website at engineersireland.ie. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, thank you so much for listening.